Welcome back to another Thirsty Thursday Live. And today we're going to be talking about all things cybersecurity, information security with a good buddy of mine, John Good. If you guys haven't followed him, subscribe to his channel, please do so. He's killing it. I love his stuff. And I want to bring him in and he can introduce himself. And yeah, let's go.
Hey, everybody. What's happening?
Hey, what's up, John? How's it going?
Good. Just another day here. Thursday now? So we're almost at the end of the week. Yes.
Yeah, that is a good point. And thank you so much. I want to say thank you so much for joining and taking your time to, do a live stream together. And I've been watching your content for a couple of years now. And, we shoot the shit every now and then. And I'm glad to have you on. And yeah, so introduce yourself for those who don't know who John Good is.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, it's great to be on too. I know we've kind of gone back and forth for a while trying to get this coordinated. So we finally made it happen. So that's awesome. So for anybody that doesn't know me, my name is John Good. I work in cybersecurity. I have a little over a decade of experience in the career field. I'm like a lot of people where I came from a different career field. So I was working in sales and marketing kind of jobs, not in the tech space. I guess kind of towards the end there, I was selling telecommunications services and things like that, but not as a technical person, right? Just as a sales rep. And decided that I wanted to change, always kind of interested in technology. And, I heard about this thing called cybersecurity. And I was like, oh, that's interesting. And for, a lot of people that are thinking about cybersecurity right now, it was very different at that time. It was not necessarily a specific career area. It was kind of an emerging area, which I guess it still technically is. But so I was really interested in that, knew I wanted to work in some kind of tech role. And so that kind of just aligned and basically ended up going back, went the degree route and got my master's in information security and cybersecurity and used that to help me kind of break into the industry and just kind of been running since.
Awesome. Thank you so much for that introduction. And I wanted to talk about that, but later on about degrees versus, certifications and all that good stuff. So that's cool. So, and you also have a YouTube channel, right? So, and obviously there's a few things that I wanted to talk about. So I guess the first thing we can talk about is entry level or how to get into the world of cybersecurity. I'll give my perspective, and if you have watched my videos, you probably know, and if those who has, they know. So do you recommend folks jumping right into the game? Everyone wants to put that anonymous mask it's in the back and just hack away, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, exactly. I think I have mine back there somewhere. I don't know. And so do you recommend okay, I want to join a help desk. I want to get a sysadmin, network admin. Yourself, you went into telecommunications, some sales before you got into cyber.
Yeah.
What is your recommendation if someone comes to you, says, hey, John, what would be the route that you take? Enlighten me, dude. Go for it.
Yeah, so this is really an interesting topic that I get asked a whole bunch about. I'm sure you get asked about it all the time. And personally, just starting with me, I jumped right into cybersecurity. I didn't work IT. I didn't work help desk. I just went the degree path and just was fortunate enough to make my way through that route directly into cybersecurity. So that path and kind of looking back at my journey and kind of my evolution in my career, I mean, there's definitely downsides to that path. For instance, you're not going to get a lot of that early exposure to things that you'll see at the help desk for troubleshooting and, even just group policies or dealing with some of those kind of system administration, network administration kind of things that you'll get going through that other path. And then on the kind of to add on to that too, it's there was a lot of things that I didn't know about because I hadn't gone through that path.
Mm-hmm.
I was, in a way, if you jump right into cyber, you're on an accelerated path for sure. To get up to speed, you've got to really try to figure out things quicker than if you come along through the normal kind of like IT transitional path, because you're expected to perform at that cyber level, whatever it is, junior level, entry level, most likely. But you're going to be expected to know certain things. There's going to be certain assumptions about what your knowledge is, and that's a downside, right? Like if you don't know that stuff and you have to go back and learn that stuff, that can take extra time. There's challenges with that path. On the flip side, go ahead. Yeah.
No, I absolutely, like, I totally agree. And where I would come from and add on to that is like, okay, you're coming to me with, you want to be a cybersecurity analyst or junior admin or junior analyst or whatever you want to be, pen tester, whatever, blue team or purple team, whatever. I don't think, even though it says entry level, I don't think any cybersecurity job is entry level, right? If you're doing forensics, you have to understand what whatever kind of forensics you're doing. If you're doing pen testing, how can you penetrate something when you don't know the basic networking, TCP/IP stack or whatever? And that's awesome that you did it without that. Like, I try to think back because I get asked the question, if you was to start today, would you have done anything differently? Me personally, probably not, because I'll be shooting myself in the foot, not knowing as much, the little bit that I know, because I don't know a lot. Like, everyone thinks I know a lot, but if you think you know a lot, you don't know anything. That's just my perspective, right? And the same thing in the networking world and the system. I see you have routers and switches in the back. Like when I did my Cisco certs and everything like that, I still, and I got pretty high up, right? Like I went to the IE level, and it's like, okay, like I understand VRFs and whatever, all these BGP, EIGRP, and all the networking stuff that you learn, even at the NP level, even sometimes at the, NA level, or CCNA, CCNP, and CCIE. Oh. And now going into cyber, when I got into cyber, knowing that, like you were talking about group policies, okay, and like GPP, group policy preferences. Remember in 2008 when we can compromise that and where passwords reside in those files. If you didn't know about those basic, group policy objects or group policy settings, it's a little more difficult to even understand what that is. And and this is my last piece of this, like today, right? I don't know whoever's a part of the advert of cyber from Try Hack Me. I'm super stoked because I was a part of that, and I'm super grateful for that. But every day I'm trying to make a video on the challenges. And today, for an example, it was something that I don't feel comfortable doing, right? I had to step out of my comfort zone and look at a log because I'm not doing that every single day. So, but I understand what it's looking for. I understand what grep is. I understand basic, some of those Linux commands. But if you're not using that every day, you're going to be lost. So I think it's definitely informative knowing that basic fundamentals prior to even jumping into something further.
Yeah, that's awesome. That Advent stuff. They hit me up too, and I was like, I don't have time, man. Like, I got a bunch of stuff going on. But even, talking about going straight into cyber, then you have like the IT path, right? Where that traditional path that people talk about, where it's like, okay, help desk or like entry level admin, something like that, maybe like engineer, and then making the transition over. It's kind of like what we're talking about. It's like you start to pick up some of those operational kind of things, and you start to you expand your knowledge, you start to learn more, and in a sense, your stress level or the amount of responsibility that you have is kind of growing as you progress. Mm-hmm. On the security side, a lot of times, you're especially at even at an entry level, your starting responsibility level is gonna most likely be a little bit higher because you're going to be overseeing other things, or maybe you have more access because you have to manage the firewall or something. And that can certainly be, a stressful situation if you have to learn stuff, plus have just job stress and all those kinds of things too. What I typically tell people, and this, basically what I tell people is when you're starting to apply to jobs, I say apply to any help desk, entry-level IT, entry-level cybersecurity that says about 0 to 3 years required of experience. And the reason why that 0 to 3 years of experience, not to go like too deep into it, but in companies, they break down jobs based on usually like amount of years of experience, your overall responsibility, things like that. So they kind of group them. And a lot of times it's based on years of experience. So that 0 to 3 years is typically like an entry level kind of role. And so you don't know who's going to call you for an interview. You don't know where you're going to get a job. And no matter how much like knowledge and training and everything like that, it's like you have to find the right opportunity that matches your level of skill or knowledge. And you have to find where those meet. And that's kind of that position that you end up landing. So that could be a cyber job. That could be an IT job. That could be a help desk job. In cyber, not everybody has the ability to bring on brand new people.
Exactly.
And you just have to find what works, right? And get your foot in the door.
Absolutely. And just to add on to that, getting into jobs and getting to all that stuff, one thing, or a lot of things, but one piece of advice is don't lie on your resume. Yeah. And I've interviewed people, and this was a few weeks ago, like I was on, I think with Hannah, I believe. It was like a month ago, and we were talking about like when I had to interview someone when I was a system admin or a system engineer. And this person was coming as a sysadmin and said he knew Active Directory, he knew all that stuff. And he had a whole bunch of acronyms behind his name, blah, blah, blah. And which, it's cool that you have some certs. Like I have certs, but it doesn't mean, I'm going to be honest. I always like to keep it 100 with me. Just because you have a cert doesn't mean you know it. And that means you just learned the topic when you learned it and you took an exam, but it doesn't mean you're going to house that data or that information in your head forever. And if you think you do, you're a liar. You know what I mean? You're a liar. So this person that I interviewed, he was like, I know Active Directory. I've said this story a billion times, but he's like, I know AD, blah, blah, blah. And you don't know AD if you just know how to go to users' computers, right click, add a user, whatever. That doesn't mean you know Active. You can do that in your local, users and in your local computer settings, right? So I just said a basic question, right? And like you have two domain controllers, DC1, DC2. I add John to DC1, but on DC2, when I added him on DC1, he's not showing up on DC2, right? What is the problem and how would you go about looking at that? And that's a very, very basic thing, right? And if you're a MCSC back then or MCITP 2008, whatever, you should know what those problems are, even like DNS and DNS replication, zone trend. This is not even cyber, this is basic IT. And he couldn't answer it. So the moral of the story is whatever you put on your resume, be prepared to back up, right? So if you look at my resume, for example, you will never see SQLI because I don't know shit about SQL injections. I don't know, there's things I don't know about, like malware analysis, all this stuff like John Hammond does and all these other great people. Like, I don't have that stuff on my resume or anywhere because I can tinker with it, but I can't have a full blown conversation like I can with other topics. So I don't know. That's just my word of advice. I don't know what you think about that how was your, point of view on, resumes and selling yourself?
Yeah. I mean, so first of all, on resumes, anything you put on there is fair game to be asked about. So keep that in mind as you're like keyword stuffing your resume. Like, all that stuff that you're just throwing in there, that's fair game to ask about. And if you get asked about it and you know nothing about it, that's not going to look great. So it's a reality, right? Yeah. I mean, some of the, I would say some of the more challenging interviews that I've ever had in my career haven't been that super sophisticated questions all the time, right? Like I've been asked in interviews, like explain DNS to me and go as deep as you can. Something like that is a very valid question And that can reveal a whole lot about what your level of knowledge is, maybe where you focus, like your thought process.
Mm-hmm.
And that's like, DNS is something you learn about like day one, right? Or like very early on. And, so that's really important to keep in mind. I think that, sometimes people think that, they have to lie on their resume to make things kind of stand out, like
Mm-hmm.
experiences or knowledge points or something like that. And I mean, make you can certainly make things sound good, right, or better
Mm-hmm.
than your initial kind of thought about a certain subject, right? Like, let's say you're managing group policies. Well, you could just be like, well, I configured group policies on computers. Or you can change that and I configure security policies and set these specific registry settings, or, like you can dive into those things and reword them in a more appealing way. And that's not lying, that's telling the same thing.
Yes.
But people kind of get lost on that path. And then sometimes they go the extreme and they're just like, all right, well, I'm going to say I know everything about whatever. Like,
Yeah. And going back to that story, like, because there was a Windows admin position that we were hiring for. So he put like WSUS, DNS, DHCP, every single acronym that's every role on a Windows server that he knew.
yeah.
And, and he obviously didn't get the job because he BS'd, just to, pass the HR, and those things. And yeah, those questions I've had, like what you said, like, okay, explain DNS, or what is ARP? That's what Keith Barker tried to get me on our live. He was like, oh, can I ask you a question? I'm like, oh, okay, I guess you can. This dude trying to trip me up live, trying to make me look like a fool. But I answered it, right? So I felt pretty pretty successful. But that's awesome. Because I get that question a lot, and like, how can I tweak my resume? And I always go to like Mike Miller, Kev. I'm not a resume writer. You know what I mean? Like, I don't do resumes. I'm not good with that. I'm not, I just knock on wood. So far, the last 10 years of my career, I never really had an interview. I just knew people. And it's just like, hey, like, I never had to go through that, like that 3-step process. And it can get exhausting. You know what I mean? It can get, especially if in our industry, right? Maybe you and I were good on camera. We can talk, we can blah, blah, blah. But there's a lot of kids that have like anxiety, social awkward. So it's like, oh shit, now they put you through 3 of these fucking things. It's like, it's a nightmare for some people, So to answer someone's question, am I from Boston? No, I'm not from Boston. That's an insult. No, I'm from New York. So yeah, that's cool. So I wanted to ask, like, so you're a content creator, right? You do awesome stuff, and I love your videos, dude. Like, kudos to that.
Appreciate that.
I'm a big supporter. Anytime, brother. So why did you become a content creator? Like, what triggered, like, oh, I want to stop making videos? Like, what was your,
Yeah. So, when I was first starting my journey in the field, like a lot of people, especially like from, that time period, especially, a lot of us were going through things like CBT Nuggets with like Jeremy Chara and Keith Barker and, these names that a lot of people know about. And I was just like, man, that's so cool. And also too, I was like, how am I going to remember all this stuff? Or like, kind of like organize my thoughts or whatever about these things. And I remember Jeremy Chara was talking about like, he became a trainer and was like, being able to teach somebody shows that you can really understand a subject, right?
Mm-hmm.
Versus like just kind of saying, okay, I understand it, but now I can actually teach somebody and answer their questions and things like that. And so I'm like, well, that sounds pretty interesting to me for sure. And in previous jobs, I had done user training for like the devices or whatever we had that we were selling.
Mm-hmm.
And so I kind of had already done a little bit of that stuff. So I knew that I liked educating people or training people and teaching people, interacting with them. And so then YouTube kind of started to grow as far as like, more content creators, a lot of tech content starting to come out there. And one day I was just like, I think I'm going to do this. And I had already started to work and create a Security Plus course, and this was a few versions back. But I was just like, I like this. Like, I like doing this. I think that I can take this course creation kind of skill set that I'm trying to hone here, and then actually take that onto a platform like YouTube, where I can reach a whole bunch more people and put out a lot more content and single videos on specific topics and things like that, and really kind of just dove right in, got a camera, started making content, started figuring out how to edit, and it's been a process. Like, creating content takes a ton of time, especially like as you're learning how to do all this stuff. It's not easy, and people, I don't think, always recognize all that effort and all that time that it takes. But my channel, we just crossed 4 years not too long ago, a couple months ago, and so that's kind of crazy to think that I've been doing it for 4 years. But it has its ups and downs. Sometimes it's really easy to just create a lot of content. Sometimes it's overwhelming. But and then especially like as you start to get a bunch of people that give positive comments, there's always trolls, which whatever.
Yeah.
Secretly, I kind of enjoy the trolling, but it's just it's great to see people that are benefiting from your content, especially like I have a video on interview questions that's like 2 or 3 years old or something like that. And it's just interview questions. So it's not really stuff that's gonna get out of date, but that has like a ton of views. And I still get people that are watching that video, like commenting on it, saying how much it helped them. They're still getting those questions in interviews. Like, I'm like, good. That is a sign of a good video for sure.
Absolutely. And that's totally true, right? Because interviewing with IT and cybersecurity, we can go to the IT route. We can go like, okay, AWS now, Azure, GCP, and all these private cloud companies. Maybe when you started, at least when I started, there was no cloud, right? There was only, the only cloud you have is if you have your stuff in the data center and you have a site-to-site VPN to that. That was before the whole MPLS and private VPNs and blah, blah, blah. So, yeah, and like I said, kudos for your success. You're about to hit 50,000, right? 50K, you had like 48 something?
48,300. I'm looking at my counter that I have back here.
That's pretty dope. That is sick. I like that. I might have to steal that from you. Get that idea.
I stole it from somebody else, so.
That's what this community is all about, just robbing each other.
Yep.
And so, all right, so I want to become a content creator in 2023/2024 now. Like, for someone that, let's talk about the budget, right? Like, because people ask me, and I remember when I started, I only had I had a Brio. I didn't get a Brio because I did it. Like, I just had, I guess, because I worked on a contract with KPMG, and I just had a Brio. But so I had a Brio, and then I had what mic did I have? When I first started, I think I had a Blue Yeti, right? Yep. So Blue Yeti, and that's pretty much it. I didn't have any light. I think I had a ring light that went over, and that was it. And if you see some of my, I didn't know what I was doing, right? I didn't know how to use OBS Studio. Yep. And before I even jump into that, did you have this? At least I had it. I don't know why I had it. I don't know if I'm a different breed, but Same. I would reach out to folks. You know what I mean? I would reach out to folks. I'm not going to mention names because I'm not going to put anyone on the spot. But I reach out to folks, like asking them. You know what I mean? Yo, like, what do you use? Like, what do you do with this? And I will let you know who's the one person that wrote back was Keith Barker, right? Yeah. And he was the last person I would think that would reach out, because that dude is, he's a legend. So I'm like, wow, this guy reached out and he's telling me to do this, do that. And pretty much I had that camera shy or camera anxiety. I still get it every now and then. Like, once you hit record, you always have to get through the, oh shit, what am I going to say? Like, once it starts flowing, it starts flowing. Yep. And then he said, that, you know how you said about Jeremy, teach someone something that can reinforce that you really know it. Like, he said to talk to yourself in the mirror, right? Like, hey guys, this is Pat, blah, blah. And I would go through that motion and it really helped me. You know what I mean? So that was a little hack that he taught me. So when you first started, obviously, thanks for sharing that. Yeah. Did you reach out to anyone for any tips or tricks, or what was that, and about the equipment?
I really didn't reach out to too many people directly about how to do things. I watched a ton of YouTube videos though, like a ton. And then I would like find, okay, what tool are they using? And then I would just like do it. Like I would use it. Like when I first started editing my videos, I started with Camtasia. And that's actually what I did my first Security Plus course, like how I chopped it up and stuff. And it was okay, but definitely needed to step it up a little bit if I wanted to really get into this a little bit heavier. And so I started using like Adobe and just like figuring out how to use Premiere, watching tutorials. That way it probably takes a little bit longer, right? Because I had to watch a lot of videos and figure out what videos were going to help me. And I'm still learning things today. Like I'm still watching things for new equipment or like other ways that I can make the overall production value of the videos better. New lights or whatever, decor, like,
Exactly.
It's an ongoing thing, right?
Yep. Yep. So would you recommend someone starting now? And do you think it's a lot of competition? Because, imposter syndrome, okay, yeah, we're not small, but we are small, right? Like 50,000 subscribers, I don't know. I think I have like 54 or 52. I don't even know what I have now. But like compared to like John just hit 1 million. I don't know if John ever watches this shit, but congratulations, John.
Yeah.
Like TCM, 700,000, 600 something thousand, even Zach Hill with 200,000, all these other like hundreds of thousands of, do you feel as though like you're a guppy in the sea?
No, I mean, so certainly, subscriber counts and like kind of that widespread impact is definitely important. Some of those people have been doing their channels for definitely longer, maybe like double of what I've been doing mine for. And so that longevity definitely continues to build your community, build your audience, and how many people that you have. But ultimately, with like YouTube and really a lot of the other platforms too, depending on how it is, like LinkedIn, they have certain ways to do things. YouTube has its own way. But if you put out quality content that people like, then that's going to just organically grow your channel, grow your influence, grow your community. So
True.
If you focus on like, typically if you're going to start, you should focus on people that are similar levels. Because if you like compare yourself, even like today, if you just started and you compare yourself against, you or me, you're going to be like, well, there's no way I'm going to get there. Like you're going to put out one video and realistically, I mean, the first video always flops for everybody, right? And you're going to be like, well, what the heck am I doing? But it is very much a consistency and longevity game. And sometimes you're going to put out content that it might be good content, right? Like I feel like I put out a lot of good information and good content. Sometimes it doesn't get picked up by the algorithm. Sometimes it doesn't go viral. That's okay. I mean, the information is still there. People will find it at some point, hopefully. But I just keep moving on with life, right? Like I spent a couple hours on this video or, more, hopefully not too much more if it flops, but you move on. You try to learn. You try to think of ideas and things that people want to see or want to hear about. Maybe you have like a unique perspective on something, and you just run with that and kind of see what works. Everybody has a different audience typically that they appeal to for various reasons.
Absolutely, and that's something. I like that you say that because this was going to transition to something I was thinking because I'm a little different, right? Like, I don't know if you ever want, like, I don't have a filter. I don't care who you are. You know what I mean? Like that's just the way I am, right? It is what it is. And there's some people, like I was on a live stream setting up Active Directory for a VMware video course that I'm creating. And, like, I don't watch my mouth. You know what I mean? Like, we're adults. If you don't like whatever you want to call it, bad words or whatever, get out of here. You know what I mean? Like, I don't care. Yeah. So there's some people that like, watch your mouth, or, like, be more careful. Yeah. Like when I'm trying to explain something like without because live stream, whatever, you're just thinking, we're just shooting the shit, right? Yeah. When you make a video, you're more focused on what you're doing versus outside of the box, outside thinking like, like just shooting the stuff, Yep. So yeah, it's just, I guess I'm just unique, but that's all good stuff. And, for everyone that wants to make videos, and that's what I wanted to get into, because even though this was all about cyber, since we are both content creators, and I wanted to see what some struggles and, are with you. And you said some of the videos flop. I think, this is what I feel, if there's 50 something thousand, 48,000 subscribers, and, like when you put out a video, I feel like, okay, where are these people? Right? It's like you put it out, it's out there for a week and you barely get 1,000 views. Right? Or something like that, unless you get like one of those bangers, you know what I mean? Like interview questions or whatever. But sometimes it's like, for an example, I did like one on Wi-Fi pen testing, right? Like how to I set up my own lab at home and showcase, and I had like almost 400,000 views.
Nice.
Right? Yeah. And it's like, okay, like where the fuck are those 400,000 people looking at everything else? You know what I mean? And it's like, yeah, it's just interesting how the algorithm, and just, and I tried to learn all about the algorithm and tags and titles, and there's a whole thing behind it. Obviously, like I don't have a lot of time on my hands to really learn all that, but that's all good information, and it's good information for myself, because we were talking a little bit prior to the chat, like, because your video quality has came a long way from like, I think I subscribed to your channel, I think in 2021, I think, when you just off the jump, you know what I mean? Just off the beginning of your journey. And now it's like today, it's like that's a big difference from 3.5 years ago, Yeah. So, I love your background. Like you're doing good shit, dude. Keep it up.
Thank you. Yeah. It's funny because like, YouTube and like LinkedIn and like, there's all these ways that people can create content. It's like Mike Miller, I mean, he just does a ton of LinkedIn stuff, right? Like that is where he does a lot. And, all of these platforms have different pros and cons to them. They all have their unique ways of doing things. They also appeal to different people. So like LinkedIn, the people that are always on there, a lot of times they're reading, text and stuff like that. Versus like YouTube, it's like they're watching videos. They want it to be very, entertaining and video format, right? Mm-hmm. TikTok, well, nobody knows what TikTok wants, but TikTok is another one, right? Very short clips, short attention span, most likely, for people that are on there. And it's different between the different platforms. And if you want to get into creating content, you just have to kind of decide, what kind of content that you want, what appeals to you personally, how much time do you have? Because some of these take a lot of time. YouTube takes a ton of time, probably the most out of all of them, just because it's, several hours for one video to create it, to edit it, maybe to draft up kind of what you want to say, or slides or demos or whatever, right? Like, it can take a lot of time for videos. And then you've got to learn how to do the tools and stuff, versus like LinkedIn. It's like you use Word and create a post or something. You got to figure out how LinkedIn works and how to maximize that, but it's different, right?
Mm-hmm. No, totally. And so obviously I have a few questions. So like another question here I got. So for these days, 2023, I don't know if I asked this question. If I did, just say, yeah, you already did. But how would you become a cybersecurity professional today? Like right now, you were working at Bob's Pizza Parlor down the block, and now today you want to become a cybersecurity engineer or whatever. what would you do today versus what you did, 10 years ago or whatever?
Yeah, I think that the path that I took and kind of the focus that I've always had is I've always thought in terms of what's going to make me very well rounded, especially like to start out. So when somebody's starting out, I always tell them you have to learn about the operating systems. You've got to learn about Windows. You've got to learn a little bit about Linux, and at least try to be professionally proficient with those, which is different than saying that you know Windows, because some people are like, I'm a Windows person. It's like, well, you know how to use it on your home computer, but it's different in the workplace.
Yes.
You've got to know about networking. Like those three things, those two operating systems and networking are like very core and central to a lot of stuff that we do. And some of that is going to change potentially, like with networking. Some of that is in flux with like software-defined networking and things like that, where it could change some, but it's still going to be relatively similar, especially if you're trying to get in now. It's not going to change overnight for sure. And then cloud. I mean, cloud is definitely one of those areas where I always tell people you need at least some understanding of that, because so many companies, especially with what's happened over the last couple of years, cloud has gone crazy. When I got started 10 years ago, cloud was not talked about like at all, right? Like we were talking about AWS for sure.
Yep.
And now a lot of small, medium-sized companies, large companies are all using these different cloud vendors. And if you can have like a cloud certification or be professionally proficient with cloud, that's going to help you a ton. And cloud is an area where you can kind of go quickly if you want to, because it's emerging still. It's not like something that's very established where like networking, right, where you have these people that have been in that field for like 30 years. It's new. So it's an area that you definitely want to have an understanding of. Typically, too, I'll say, because this kind of goes back to when we were talking about like paths and getting directly into cyber IT, this career field, and whether you go into IT, cyber, doesn't matter. It's all about taking advantage of opportunities that come up for you, and then figuring out how to take that opportunity and leverage that to get where you want to go. So what is your end goal? You're not going to necessarily get every opportunity that you apply to. All right, you're not going to get every single job that you apply to or anything like that. But you're going to have these kind of like turns or zigzags in your path, because you're going to have opportunities that come available. You have to decide if that's a good or reasonable path or decision to go down. Because that's going to matter. Ultimately, that could shape and shift, where you go. But especially as you start to get more experience, you can start making better educated decisions about, okay, well, I'm lacking this skill, or I need to really focus on developing X. And so now I can take this path because this opportunity came available to me. And now I can see the future of how I can kind of make that jump to my next role past that too. So it's a lot of like, people always want like that direct path, like, okay, what do I do? Like A, B, C, D, E, F, right? Like, what do I do? Realistically, you're going to make a few decisions, and you're going to have to recalculate or rethink your path and see if that is still what you're interested in, if that's, relevant to the skills that you've developed. And, if that makes sense still, is that still going to be where things are going, like in the industry too? Because that matters too, right? Like you don't want to go down a legacy path because that's going to hurt you eventually.
Yep.
But yeah, there's a lot of zigzags in everybody's path. It's not typically like a straight thing, but start out with the fundamental stuff, the operating systems, networking, cloud, and then you kind of just start to evolve from there and make decisions.
Cool. And so that will transition to the next thing about certifications, right? I'm not sure which certs you have under your belt, but if I'm new, like going back to the same question, like I'm brand new to the field, I'm coming to you, John. Hey, yo, like what search can I get to, make sure I at least, get into the door, and get the interview and get like that. So I want to become a SOC analyst. What, what do you say? What's my direction?
Yeah. So, with certifications, the first thing that I'll say is that you have to look and see what employers are asking for. Like, if you don't listen to anything that we have to say or that I have to say, it's like, just go look at job postings. Like, that's going to tell you a lot about what employers are looking for. A lot of times people want to kind of, they want to form their own path or go against the grain and like fight employers on what they're asking for. It's like they're literally telling you what they're asking for. So keep that in mind with like certification, skills, anything like that. Typically, what I tell people as far as certifications go, I say, look at the Network Plus from CompTIA. Yep. I typically don't, for most people, recommend the CCNA. It's not that I hate the CCNA or that I like, it's a bad certification or anything like that. I had 2 CCNAs, I had a CCENT, I let them all expire because I never used them.
Me too.
And so I get flack all the time because people are like, no, go for the CCNA. Like that's wrong. That's the best certification. But the Network Plus and the CCNA have so much overlap besides like the Cisco stuff. You're going to learn about subnetting. You're going to learn about routers and switches. Yeah, you're not going to actually go in there and configure a Cisco router, but in cyber, probably not going to do that anyways.
Exactly.
So at least you'll have that fundamental understanding. Then from there, typically I'll say get like the Security Plus. And a lot of times the certifications that I choose or that I recommend to are based on employer demand, right? Because you're opening up more doors. More employers are going to recognize the certification that you have. And I think that's generally a good thing to do. Security Plus, it's going to give you kind of that introduction to security. Again, you're not going to learn to necessarily configure firewalls or anything crazy, so don't really go in expecting that. You're going to learn some command line tools and some basic kind of stuff that is security centric with that. And that's going to be helpful. It'll give you more vocabulary for cyber, which is really important. Being able to communicate in a way that everybody understands is very important, because if you're speaking one language and somebody else is speaking another language, there's going to be problems, there's going to be issues. And so professionally, that's a good idea. Typically from there, I tell people to get like a cloud certification. And this is all because I want people to be generally well-rounded, and that kind of really helps that focus. It gives you enough skills that are going to be in demand for a lot of jobs, or a lot of employers will look at that and be like, okay, like cool, you have Network Plus, Security Plus, maybe like a CCP or something from AWS. I'd like you to have a little bit more in cloud than just like the very foundational certification, because I think it does help, especially if you're struggling to find a role or land a role like a SOC analyst, right? Like if you're struggling to land that, it doesn't hurt to open up some doors, because you can always pivot too.
Exactly.
From there, especially if you're like SOC focused, there's several good options kind of in I like to call it like that intermediate-ish level. There's not really what I would call like a clear winner. Like, entry level, like, you have like your Network Plus, CCNA, like those are like the two. There are some other options kind of in that intermediate level. Like there's the Cyber Ops Associate from Cisco. That's an okay option if you can get, especially if you can get the official training, because they have good information, but it's probably not going to be on the least expensive option. I really like the Blue Team level 1. They have, I believe, a level 2 and a level 3 for like the higher levels. But I think that's a pretty good option. That's a relatively new certification. So it's, in that level, you're not going to necessarily find a lot of these in a ton of job postings, so it's more about building skills than it is getting those heavy hitters. But that'll give you some skills, that'll give you some hands-on. CYSA Plus is an alternative to that, where you're still going to learn about those security analyst kind of things. It's going to be less expensive. It's not going to be, it's probably not going to be as good, right? Like it's going to be very, very similar to other CompTIA certifications, but it'll give you some knowledge. If you want a heavy hitter at that level for like a SOC analyst job, like the one that employers would love you to have, would be like the GCIH and GCIA. Those are gonna be super expensive, so I'm not gonna heavily recommend those, but they're really good, right? And if you can do like the work study program where your employer pays for it or something like that, certainly that would be more ideal. But if you're going to foot the bill, I don't. They're not typically targeting the individual. So they're typically targeting organizations that are going to send their teams. And I think, with SANS and the GIAC certifications, that's kind of where there starts to be this like misconception. Is like, well, they're like trying to target me individually and charge me like 10 grand for a certification. Like that's not really like their game plan.
Yeah.
But it definitely, like in the hierarchy of certifications, I mean, they do hold weight, right? Because they're so expensive. There's not a ton of people that have them, and ongoing, you can get the refreshed books and things like that, so you can get that that premium content, if you will.
Yeah, that's definitely a lot of good information. And I agree with you 100% with all of those. I never took any of the Blue Level 1 or any of the SANS courses because mucho dinero. And like the CYSA Plus, like I was thinking about taking that certification just to get more understanding about the SOC side of things and analyzing. Prime example today with the day 7 of the Advert of Cyber, it was going in, looking at a log and using your Linux commands to actually chop that up using cut commands and all this stuff. Yep. And, you're pretty much analyzing, right? You are analyzing logs. So that's pretty much what a SOC does. You like look at maybe a TCP IP dump or TCP dump or something in your firewall or something like that. And I think it's super super helpful for that information to be, understood. So I think we landed on every single question I got. So we have about 13 more minutes, top of the hour. I want to respect your time. So I guess we'll go through some. Usually I'll have someone that helps us out with the questions. He's not feeling so hot tonight, so we'll go through these questions and see what's up. All right, so I'll start from the top. I'm gonna go down, see if there's anything here. And if there's any questions now that you guys are watching, and I thank you so much if you guys have been watching the whole time. Super informative. Thank you so much, John, for all the information that you're sharing.
Yeah, absolutely.
And let's see, I took a help desk job, was hoping. No. All right, so I'll throw this up here. John Doe. John Doe. I took a help desk job. Cool. Congratulations on that. Was hoping for a cybersecurity job, but I figured I'd start now. Yes. If this is your first IT job, kudos, congratulations, and thank you so much for being a part of the family. And hopefully, with being in the help desk position, you can set up your cyber lab at home. We don't really get into. I think there was some questions there, but we'll get into maybe if we have enough time. But there's always stuff that you can do at home. Set up your own cyber lab. Keep tinkering, keep learning, and then just throw yourself back out there in the wolves and start applying for cybersecurity jobs. At least you got your foot in the door. Maybe they have a cyber division. Maybe they have an InfoSec division that you can maybe shadow, show that interest, and you never know where life can take you. So kudos, congratulations, John.
Yeah, gaining experience is so crucial in this career field. It's like when people are like, well, should I just apply to cyber jobs and, basically spend 6 months or a year of just pure disappointment because I can't land anything? Or should I go like try to get a help desk job or IT job or something like that? And it's like that experience is so important. Getting certifications and learning in the lab is great, but it's only going to get you so far, right?
Yeah.
Like there is not only like that learning those skills, but it's also like, okay, like somebody actually hired this person. They were working on their networks. They were trusted enough to do this stuff. Like there is more to this career field and being successful than necessarily just credentials or, labs.
Yep. So let's see, Juan. I'm a sysadmin for a pre-K 5 years. I'm doing a bit of cyber, studying my A+, keep learning every day. Yep. Juan, yeah, I'll throw that up there. It's not a question, but kudos, keep learning. And hopefully you're enjoying the advert of cyber. I'm enjoying it. Sometimes I get stumped. You guys can watch the walkthroughs. I don't know everything and I do get stumped. And what I do, this is just my preference. I do I do the challenge. And like today, my video was like 30 minutes because, like I had to go back and forth and I have to take snippets and put it on another screen. And then I go back and I watch the walkthrough. I think today was Insider PhD or something like that. And, I watched her walkthrough and she made it look so simple. And she did it in like 15 minutes. And I was like, oh, I'm definitely stealing some of her ideas. So that's just my preference on that. Let's see. Let's keep going down. Have all the hands on, blah, blah, blah. Let's throw this up there. Mikey, I have all the hands-on skills, ranked the #1 and try hack me. Kudos. Have studied for everything, A+, security plus, no, just haven't taken the test because of, yeah. So if you have a position, where you're at, maybe like A+, Network Plus, Security Plus. Yes, I do have, as you guys can see, I have, a lot of stuff from EC Console before. I don't want to get into that, but I do have like CEH, CHFI, LPT, ECSA, and I even have my EC Console trainer. So
nice.
Yeah, I was teaching I like the CHFI is actually, I like that certification. Yeah. If you guys are into forensics and all that fun stuff, that's a good one. And I enjoy that stuff. I actually do it for fun. I don't do it as a career anymore. I did some stuff years ago, but like using autopsy, in-case, and e-discovery stuff. But yeah, so just haven't taken the test. Yeah, and they're expensive. Like if you're paying out of pocket, it can be very costly. So let's see.
I have my CEH as well. It's like if you work in the defense industry, it's a good idea to get your CEH. Mm-hmm. It's like Security Plus, CEH, CISSP. Like if you get those three, like that'll qualify you for a lot of jobs per like the DoD 8140 and 8570 and stuff. So
exactly. If you want to go into that sector, absolutely. Like I have my CISSP, SSCP, and yeah, it's definitely a good one to have. And the CEH. But if you're trying to get the CEH to learn how to hack, not so. Yeah, I keep my comments to myself. But
well, they added that practical side.
Yeah, the master now.
Yeah, and they hurt themselves so much for not like evolving fast enough. Mm-hmm. And obviously they have some reputational issues and stuff, but they became complacent for sure.
Yes.
And that definitely hurt them for sure.
Yeah, no, they did. And now, like since the OSCP, EJPT, now PMPT, PJPT, there's all these acronyms like from TCM and OffSec and all these other ones, INE. Yeah. And let's see, blah, blah, blah. Let's see, I can't really see because the mic's in the way. So Franklin, home lab, whether it's virtual, physical, a combination of both is key to learning. Good, cheap equipment out there. Yeah, so in my opinion here, because we see John's equipment back there, I don't know if you actually turn those things on or if it's just for looks.
It's got dust on it now, yeah.
Yeah, like I have a thermometer here and it's 81 degrees in this office. Yeah. It's really, really hot because I have a server back there and my server rack, as you guys can see in a NAS, it gets warm, especially I have the door closed. So now what you can do, if you're studying for CCNA or Palo or Checkpoint, if we're talking about the networking room, you can use GNS3, EVE-NG, just get on your local machine, because I'm sure your machines are hopefully, not everyone, but for the 32 gigs of RAM minimum, because it's so cheap to buy RAM, and you could throw this stuff on your with a couple of routers and a switch or whatever. But yeah, it's super critical to learn with your home lab.
Yeah, it's funny. This gear I got when I was studying for my CCNA, and I was going to go CCNP, and so I beefed it up. The home lab that I had, I think I added a couple router and switches and stuff. But when I was studying that stuff, it's like home lab and like physical gear was really kind of the way to go. Virtualization wasn't nearly as good as it is now. You had like GNS3, but you had to get the iOS installs and our images, and that was a huge pain. GNS3 didn't always work right. You couldn't do switching virtually.
Exactly.
Like there was a lot of like issues with that. So that's why I have the physical gear. Today, honestly, like in general, I wouldn't even do physical gear. I would probably opt to do virtual, except maybe if you wanted to get like a one router or something just to like kind of feel it out. But virtualization has come so far, and then if you get like a really beefy computer or a good computer where you can do a lot of that virtualization, you can do your server operating systems and like everything else on that. It's like,
yeah, exactly. And they have, I'm just going to Google this real quick. I think it's CML.
Yep, Cisco Modeling Labs.
Cisco Modeling Labs.
Yeah. Even Packet Tracer has gotten phenomenal compared to what it used to be, because like the switching and everything in there, and that's free.
The one thing like I do like, or I did Packet Tracer when I did my CCENT back in the day when there was 2 exams. And the one thing about I don't know how it is, maybe they changed it now, but it was, say for example, you're doing show IP interface brief, right? And then that didn't work. Some commands didn't just work because it's simulating, it's not really emulating it. So that's where like GNS3 came in, and EVE-NG and CML and all these sandbox, environments. So, and Angelo, if this is D'Angelo, my twin brother, happy early birthday, brother. Thank you. Likewise, we both have the same birthday. So thank you, Angelo. Lauren, hey guys. Hey, Lauren. There's blah, blah. Let's see here. Will entry-level IT jobs value an OSCP, help desk, or SOC 1? I'll throw it out to you, John. Go for it.
Yeah, I definitely have some opinions here. So, for jobs themselves, I always tell people to think about the core tasks of that job first, and like what you learn, what you're gonna get certified in, those kinds of things. Because, like OSCP for help desk, let's say. Okay, so at a help desk, you're never gonna have access to Kali. If you have access to Kali, that's not good. So you're not gonna be doing pen tests. You're gonna be most likely working with tickets, probably working with things like Active Directory or something like that, some identity access management stuff, stuff like that, kind of those core things. So personally or like professionally, is that knowledge valuable? I mean, it's good stuff to know, but like help desk especially, it's not going to be really of value. Like a SOC 1, it's the same kind of thing, right? Like, what are the core tasks of that job? A lot of times it's going to be looking at logs, it's going to be reviewing alerts, maybe diving into some settings or, whatever, creating some automation or something. Those are the core tasks. So you have to satisfy those first. And then beyond that, like the OSCP, in a SOC, understanding some of that stuff is going to be valuable because you can recognize patterns, or maybe you see something in the logs because you already know how to analyze the logs. And now all of a sudden you're pulling that information out and you're like, oh yeah, like this is this kind of attack, or, this technique or whatever.
Yeah. No, that's super good. So we have two more here. Let's go show up another John Doe. Do you guys have any thoughts on the CISSP? It's on almost every entry level job, or every job posting and site. So you can give your thoughts first, and
Okay.
Go for it.
Yeah. So, a lot of times with certifications, the reason why they give a variety of certifications is because it shows that you're continuing to learn. You have the aptitude to learn certain things. So there's value in that sense. There's like specific jobs where the CISSP can come into play. I mean, it is a management targeted certification, so it's meant for a management level or lead level audience. At its core, so those are the people that it's really trying to target. Because if you look at the domains, you look at the exam as you take it, it's not deep dive technical aspects. No. It is having a broad understanding of a lot of different domains, but a relatively narrow, not deep understanding of those. Because in a manager job, you're going to rely on other people. You're going to have to find the person that can do that, or have just that broad understanding, so you kind of know enough to understand what's going on. If we're talking about in the defense industry, I mean, yeah, like that's a whole another thing, because the DoD 8570, 8140, like all those things. So you're definitely going to see it on those jobs. But keep in mind too that like job postings are not like 100% of the requirements don't have to be met to fill it with a candidate. These are typically things that employers like, or there is value in those if you have them, or a combination of some of this stuff. But just because it's in there doesn't mean that that is a firm requirement. And that goes for anything: degrees, experience, technologies, whatever, right? Like it's very rare that it is a firm requirement.
Yep. And I agree. Going back to like the network engineering days when I would apply for network engineering roles, just because you don't know ASAs, or, these are Cisco firewalls, maybe you come from a WatchGuard because you were cheapskates for your company, right? So you had some WatchGuards. Now, if you understand what a firewall is and how a firewall traverses data, static NAT or dynamic NAT or whatever, egress, all the stuff that we do with firewall configuration, you can take that and translate that or move that over to the ASA. Yeah, maybe you're gonna have to learn. Now they have what's called FTDs, firepower threat defense. But then you back then you have the CLI or you have the ASDM, to configure your Cisco firewalls. And in the WatchGuard, you use, I think, System Manager or something like that. SonicWall, you have something else. And everyone, Palo Alto has Panorama. Like everyone has their own little management, but as long as you understand how the core of a firewall works, you can learn it. Just like the cloud. Oh, like I have a friend recently that got declined a job interview because he didn't have AWS experience, but he has his AZ900, some Azure stuff, because where he worked prior was an Azure shop. It wasn't AWS. And they like, no, you need to get your, solutions architect or whatever practitioner from AWS. And it's like, all right, so give me 6 months and let me prove to you. So there's always that argument too, like, at least let me get into the door and prove to you. If I don't meet your requirements, fucking get rid of me. You know what I mean? Go on with the next one.
Yeah,
So
a lot of technologies, it's like, if you have something like whatever they list, then most of the time you'll be okay, because they'll be like, well, X and we're trying to use Y, but they're like the same thing, whatever. It's pretty rare that they're like, no, like we literally need like somebody that is certified in this. And it's usually because they don't have a lot of time to get somebody spun up, right? Like they need somebody to hit the ground running with whatever it is. And
Exactly.
it happens. And
Yep.
there's not really anything you can do about it. So.
Yep. And let me see, this is the last one. General, it's like a boot camp, learning more. Yeah, Juan. Yeah, absolutely. Like I said before, today I definitely learned a few things. There's, what is today, the 7th? So there's what, I don't know, I don't know. I can't do the math, but there's like 2 weeks left in this challenge. And I know there's going to be some days that I'm going to be lost. So cool that you're learning something new every day, continue learning, and, Try Hack Me is definitely a fun little platform to learn. And, I used to get the question, oh, try Hack Me or Hack the Box or VulnHub and all that stuff. But we don't have to get into that today. But like, in my opinion, Try Hack Me is more entry level, and you get to, hack the box, because technically they just throw you a machine, boot up, spawn an IP, and then you go to town, right? Now they have the academy, but before, now with Try Hack Me, they give you a room. Yes, some rooms are like, okay, where's the user flag and the root flag, and that's all you get. But that's more for the advanced rooms. But most of the rooms, before you even get there, you're going to get those rooms that are going to walk you through, like the advent of cyber. They're going to walk you through. They pretty much give you the answers. You just have to, they don't give you the core answer, but they give you the methodology to utilize in order for you to find the answer. So, kudos, keep doing your thing. And
It's so funny that Hack the Box and offensive security both have learned that people, especially like from a professional standpoint, people don't like to be thrown into the deep end and just told to, try
exactly. I remember when I was doing my OSCP, right? Like, this is when Hack the Box, you had to hack your way in, get that Java key and get the registration key. But there was a hack, now we can say the hack because it's a long time ago. But if you just go to I think it was hackthebox.org/register now, you get your key. So that's besides the point. You don't have to do the whole inspect element, go through the Java and do all that hack and sack. And so this is the last one. And then obviously I want to respect John's time. And I have the AWS Cloud Cert, kudos, Base Cohen. Got it before I got the Sec Plus. Cool. It doesn't matter what order you get your certs, in my opinion, as long as you can, speak on the certification that you have. I think that's what's important.
Yeah, I mean, cloud certs are always good. Cloud too, it's one of those areas where it's like, if you want to get into cloud, you don't have to do a lot of stuff outside of like the vendors. It's kind of like almost like Cisco, was 5-10 years ago, especially, where it's like, okay, I'm going to specialize in Cisco. Mm-hmm. And I'm just going to learn, all the route switch stuff, maybe get up to a CCIE. Same with cloud. AWS is like, all right, just go straight through that path, and you're gonna work in cloud, right? Like, there's different specialties and stuff, and even like in cloud, it's like the actual jobs tend to be kind of combined. There's not a lot of siloed off cloud areas. It's like cloud generalists a lot of times.
Yeah, no, I agree. And that's it for me. And is there any last words for you, John, you want to say to the crowd? And, how can people find you? And, obviously John Good Cyber, is that across the board or?
Yeah. Yep. That was one thing that I made sure to do as I was building up my YouTube page and everything like that, is John Good Cyber on all the major platforms, Twitter, which I don't use Twitter a ton, but Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, all those, you just use that, and then that will that'll take you to me, or that's like my alias or whatever on there. And YouTube is where I put a bunch of content out, especially video stuff. LinkedIn, really anywhere you want to get a hold of me. I tend to be, or I try to be, everywhere. But
awesome, John.
Glad to be on the channel, and glad I got to spend some time with you guys here.
No, likewise. Thank you so much. And if anyone has any questions for John and myself, you can reach out to him like he said, or if it's for me, you can leave a comment in the comments below, and then we'll talk to you guys soon. And until next time, have a beautiful day.
Yep. See ya.
See ya.